Welcome to the Jaybe Show on Revolutionary Blackout Network. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you here on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. Just let you guys know the Jaybe Show is every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. You can also find me on the Sabby and Jaybe Show on Thursdays at 6 p.m. You can also find me on my channel as well on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Saturdays at 6. So good to see all of you here joining us today on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. I almost said morning. Just to let you guys know, if you guys have not already, you guys can also subscribe to our Substack at revolutionaryblackout.substack.com so that you guys get email notifications whenever we go live or upload clips. You can also become patrons on our Patreon at Revolutionary Blackout. And then you can also go to our website at revolutionaryblackoutnetwork.com so you guys can stay up to date on whatever we're doing on the ground. So thank you so very much for all of you for being part of this community. So I'm just going to say hello to everybody that's in the chat that's saying hello. We got some things to talk about. It's going to be an interesting show today. So we have Pikachu Man says, dangerous second thought reaction. Second thought, the YouTuber. We will be reacting to one of his latest videos. And I think this is actually a very important video to react to because I think a lot of times, we will try to make the lesser evil argument when in reality, evil is evil, baby. We're going to get into it. It's going to be interesting. All right. So also, we have here My Rock, My Salvation says he's also America's worst enemy. Ooh, absolutely. Thank you so much. John H coming in saying, hey, JB comrades. Good to see you, John, as well in the chat. Just checking on the Rockfin side. We got a couple people walking on the Rockfin side, and I bet you got a couple people watching on the Rumble side. So good to see all of you in here as well. Now, what are we talking about today? Well, here we go. So Biden, his own worst enemy. Some things have happened over the weekend in response to Biden. Just want to share that with you guys a little bit. And then the dangerous liberal. Why do we have Democrats there? Why do we have liberals there? Did you know that they're just as dangerous as conservatives? Let's get into it. So there's a comrade by the name of JT. He has a channel called Second Thought. And I've been subscribed to his channel for quite some time now. And he's put out very good videos, especially ones that explain the socialist and also explaining what's going on around the world in regards to the way it relates to our mode of production, the way it relates to how we're treated as citizens within this country, as we call the Imperial Core. And so he does great work, and it's very digestible, right? 15 to 20 minutes and one and done. So all you need is 15, 20 minutes, watch, and then you'll get that information, right? It's a good shot in the arm, especially for class analysis. And so that's one of the reasons why I like his channel a lot. He put out a video, and he's typically pretty careful in how he maneuvers, right? This time he said, there's no maneuvering this. This has to be set. And he sounded like RBN. Yes. Was this video cathartic? You bet your ass it was cathartic. What on point? You bet your ass it was on point. Did a RBN member get featured? Not physically featured, but one of their tweets get featured in this video. You bet your ass. I make some damn good tea. So we're going to get into it because there are, and then some people who I respect on Twitter that their viewpoints were also shared as well. But I want to get into this because this is something I think a lot of people, especially with the onset of what happened since October 7th with the Palestinian resistance, and now it's really more of a mask off, even more when it comes to liberals. And make no mistake, right? People like Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene and people like Ron DeSantis and Matt Gaetz and all these conservatives, right? We know they're horrible, right? We know that. It's like it's no surprise. And believe me, you, when Trump wins, because we know he's going to win in November, when he wins, you don't think that we're not going to hold his feet to the fire just like we did Biden? You don't think we're not going to lambaste him? Oh, stay tuned. So, but I should say my deal is we want you to know that the liberals are just as bad as the conservatives. Somebody may say no. Well, there's some historical figures who also agree with me. So let's get into this. And I hope you guys got your tea, your popcorn ready, because this is going to be an interesting reaction. So shout out to Second Thought. If you guys have not subscribed to this channel, please make sure to do that. He does amazing work. So JT, take it away.
And others like it are brought to you by the generous support of my patrons on Patreon. If you'd like to help support this channel, join our growing Discord server, and get early access to every video, consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/secondthought.
First, I must confess that over the past few years, I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride toward freedom is not the white citizens' counselor or the Ku Klux Klaner, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom.
That white person that you see calling himself a liberal is the most dangerous thing in the entire Western Hemisphere. He's the most deceitful. He's like a fox. And a fox is always more dangerous in the forest than the wolf. You can see the wolf coming. You know what he's up to. But the fox will fool you. He comes at you with his mouth shaped in such a way that even though you see his teeth, you think he's smiling and take him for a friend.
All right. Rolling. Okay, let's go. Over the past 5 months, just about everyone I know has come to the same conclusion. Dyed-in-the-wool liberals are as much the enemy of normal, decent people as conservatives are. And when I say liberal, I don't mean your average Joe who likes Harry Potter and Marvel movies and doesn't really think about politics outside of election years.
Will you shut up, man?
I mean the people who love Harry Potter and Marvel movies and also go out of their way to scold Palestinians for resisting their own extermination.
This is why I wanted to play this. So he starts off with two of the most polarizing figures in U.S. history people, you have Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and you have Malcolm X, both saying the same thing. This is basically the equivalent of Professor Charles Xavier and Magneto saying the same thing. By the way, just to let you guys know, in Marvel, Charles Xavier and Magneto were modeled after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, by the way. But anyways, so they're saying the same thing because they reached the same conclusion because they have been observing how the white moderate, aka the white liberal, and by the way, these days it's not just that classification of white. That's why on the thumbnail I also have Kamala Harris and Hakeem Jeffries. Make no mistake about it. It is a personification. It is not necessarily an immutable characteristic anymore. It's that white moderate of the heart, that white moderate of the mind. That is what is some of the most dangerous thought processes in this country. And also, while we're talking about identity, I also say to the LGBTQ moderates too, the LGBTQ liberals, because guess what? I'm gay, so I'm going to call my people out. Yes, you LGBTQ people who are liberals, who will always side with the Democrats, when in reality, they don't give a shit about you, me, nobody who's trans, nobody who's non-binary, nobody who's lesbian, nobody's gay, nobody's bi. They don't care. Let's be real. This is who this is directed towards. Because I am sick and tired of the gays that are always coming in and going, well, what about Project 2025? What about Project 2025? Because if it wasn't for Obama sitting on his damn hands, well, we wouldn't have gotten Trump. If it wasn't for Bill Clinton throwing the left under the bus like he classically did, we wouldn't have got George W. Bush. And yet, oh, that's the best we can do. Anywho, I don't want to go on a huge tirade right now, even though I really want to. Look, I don't know what the hell was inside that tea. But I'm on. Let's continue. JT, please take it away.
People who demand you condemn Hamas while refusing to acknowledge that history didn't begin on October 7th. People who split their time evenly between rewatching Hamilton and calling anyone who criticizes Joe Biden a Russian troll or a Chinese spy. I think you know the type. But just so we're on the same page before we go any further, let me be extra clear. Liberalism is the default ideology in the imperial core. The average person ends up with a liberal perspective by osmosis. There is a pipeline from simply existing in the empire to becoming a rabid servant of the empire. And if you feel like this is an attack on you personally, please don't feel that way. Everyone should be capable of changing their perspective when presented with new evidence. If you're not, that's a good sign you may have been indoctrinated into a dangerous ideology. But that's what this video is about. I'm going to give you just a little bit of evidence that Western liberals are a tremendous force for evil. And contrary to what they want you to believe, they absolutely do not care about truth, justice, peace, or progress. Let's start.
What did Martin Luther King Jr. say? They want peace, as in the absence of justice. Peace meaning they want you to suffer quietly. Oh my God, you got shot? Oh, can you scream in pain? Don't scream in pain. Just muffle yourself. Will you? And oh, look, get that blood all over my shoe. What's the matter with you? Oh my God, these people are doing these horrible things to you. I just wish you protested more peacefully. You know, you'll never get people to listen to you if you burn down that Target. I may end up going over in time on this one.
Let's start with the civil rights era. A lot of Americans today erroneously believe that when Dr. King came onto the scene, he magically opened everyone's eyes and ended racism. Sure, things were bad back then, but his words were so moving that everyone put down their pitchforks and agreed that we were all equal. And of course, the white liberals were marching hand in hand with black Americans to forge a path to a brighter future. While MLK did have a profound way with words, and there were indeed a number of white Americans who marched for equal rights, this simplified view of the civil rights era is exceptionally misleading. Martin Luther King is one of the most co-opted figures in modern history. Everyone tries to claim him for their particular set of beliefs. I made a whole video about how history whitewashes black radicals. But the thing about these people waxing poetic about how great King was is that 90% of the time they would have hated the man had they lived in the same era. Think about your family members today and how they reacted to the Black Lives Matter rallies and protests. If they're anything like my family, you probably heard some pretty ignorant, hateful statements. The same exact thing happened in Dr. King's time. Police brutality, rampant racism, and constant attempts to misconstrue what the movement was really about. The thing that always concretizes that fact for me is this comic, by the white moderate cartoonist Charles Brooks. King talking to a reporter with the city destroyed in the background and some white people lying on the ground, and King saying, "I plan to lead another non-violent march tomorrow."
It is recorded fact that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. died with a 75% disapproval rating in the United States of America. Most people hated him. This includes liberals. So it's any wonder why that now they suddenly, oh my God, we have to judge people by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. You hated him. The people who are Joe Biden's age, the people who are Nancy Pelosi's age, the people who are Mitch McConnell's age, the people who were born during the Second World War, people that age, they hated him. They couldn't stand him. What makes you think that shit changed? What makes you think it changed at all? The same dude that said, "I don't want my kids to grow up in a racial jungle." What did Maya Angelou say? When someone tells you who they are the first time, believe them. By the way, 50% of black people hated him. So, those Richie Torreses, those Kamala Harrises, right? Those Zerlina Maxwells, those Julianne Reeds, they also would have hated him too. Because you're messing things up for the rest of us. Those Oprah Winfreys would have hated him. Those Tyler Perrys would have hated him. That's not the way we need to go about this. Can you imagine in Nat Turner's rebellion, some slaves going, "Well, I just don't think that we should be doing this because what's the other masters going to think about the rest of us?" You see how it goes? Because the white moderate, the white liberal, what they do is that they will also influence other black people into taking on the same exact position. And then guess what? then they start to come up to us using their skin color, using their proximity to their own community, and saying, hey, we gotta cool down a little bit. If you want to change the police, then just become a police officer yourself. Change it from the inside. You want to change the Democratic Party? You run in the Democratic Party. You change it from the inside. Meanwhile, let's continue.
This is exactly what we see today. Liberals get uncomfortable and suddenly they're not for equal rights anymore. Or more accurately, they still say they are, but they just have some concerns about optics. That's not how you're supposed to protest. Why can't everyone just protest peacefully? Why? So you can ignore it? The entire point of protest is to be disruptive. But even if we put that aside, no one wants to have to protest.
Now, hang on. This is why they don't want us to protest. Because they don't want to be bothered. I'm going to share something with you guys really quick because I saw this and it bothered me in my spirit. Because these are the same people that will say, well, we agree with you. You just have to go about it a different way. And the thing is that we have been trying to go about it a different way for a long ass time. But every single time we try to go about it that way, y'all don't pay attention. So guess what we do? We have to make noise. So I'm gonna, let me see. Yes, here it is. I'm gonna play this for you guys to prove JT's point. Because this is something I think that a lot of liberals just do not understand. And I'll get back to the video in a second. But I want to share this with you guys. This is a perfect encapsulation of the white moderate. And by the way, he's doing this to another white guy. This is at a town hall.
Palestinian children. Yeah. How many? I have a question. You how many children need to be killed? How many? I have a question. You sit there.
Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Don't bother my conscience. I don't want to hear I don't want to hear about little children being bombed using my federal dollars. Don't do it. You're bothering me. You're making my heart break. I don't want to feel for my fellow human beings. Shut the fuck up and sit down. That doesn't sound very empathetic to me. The gentleman that started protesting, his disruption was love for fellow people. The gentleman that stood up and started screaming at him to sit down, that is a hatred for that love to be shown in public. Because he doesn't want to be bothered here. That's a white liberal. And it's not just limited to age. because people will be like, well, he's a boomer. No. It's not just limited to age. Because I've seen Gen X do it. I've seen millennials do it. Hell, I'm starting to see Gen Z do it. The likelihood is a little bit less, but some of them do it too. And it's all about decorum, right? This is what I was talking about. So let's get back to the video, because JT's cooking. JT's cooking with hot grease right now. Let's continue.
Have to protest. They want things to change with as little friction as possible. But that's just not how things work when the oppressor class likes their position, and that position is dependent upon subjugating another class. It's like Castro said during the Cuban Revolution. The people did not choose the path of armed struggle. It was the path that was forced upon them. Same with Palestine. The number of tweets I've seen from liberals saying, I don't understand why they can't just peacefully protest, is insane. And every single time, someone claps back with a different instance of Palestinians peacefully organizing and being killed all the same. By the time King penned his letter from Birmingham jail, which you heard some of at the beginning of this video, he had become disenchanted with white northern liberals, who had earlier in his career been his greatest source of white support. But when King started talking about issues that intersected with racism, such as economic inequality, these liberals started to squirm. The comfortable whites who looked down on the Southern yokels for their ignorance and racism were now in the hot seat themselves. They benefited from a two-tiered society in which liberal elites were at the top. And so the complaint about optics was born. Look, Dr. King, we support your ideals, but the way you're protesting just isn't okay. This is the way liberals operate. They support emancipation movements in theory, but as soon as it crosses into the realm of the material, they become no different than conservatives.
Perfect timing, because whenever we actually want to enforce change, and when people do not listen to us, then it's like, well, you guys should do it a different way. Dr. King said, a riot is the language of the unheard. What happens when people aren't listening to you? Does your voice get louder? Do you become more boisterous? This was during the Black Lives Matter protest. I want you guys to listen to this. You guys probably heard this before, but this is impactful. I want you to really just sit with this, especially if you're white and you consider yourself a moderate or a liberal. Listen to this. Right there. See, everybody wants to focus on the what. They want to focus on, well, look at them. They're stealing. Why are they stealing? It's just like when I shared a tweet about them having to lock up baby formula. Well, they just want to steal baby formula and sell it. so they can make more money. Why is it worth money on the black market? Why is baby formula worth it? If I had things my way, baby formula would be worth hardly anything on the black market, because it would be a government provision to be given away for mothers who are feeding their kids, mothers and fathers to feed their kids, parents to feed their kids. Meaning, you can try to sell it on the black market, but everybody's like, well, it's available everywhere, so it's not really worth anything for me to get it from you. Focus on the why. Now, this sister, she cooks. Can you smell it? I can't tell.
And that's
Before I let her continue to cook, what did Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. say about pulling yourself up by your bootstraps? It is really an insult to tell a bootless man to pull himself up by his bootstraps. We ain't got boots. Baby, we ain't got socks. Baby, we don't even have feet in this country. And you're telling us to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps.
and I'm so glad that as a child I got an opportunity to spend time at Push where they taught me this.
And when we say we are owed reparations, oh, people will scoff at us and say, oh, well, it didn't happen directly to you. Meanwhile, the people who still have wealth passed down from them to them from their ancestors who owned slaves, who were enslavers, why should they be able to keep that wealth? Because they didn't personally own slaves, so they shouldn't be able to keep the wealth that was built from owning the slaves. So therefore, if we are not owed any reparations, then the people who are the descendants of the enslavers should not get any of the inheritance that their ancestors gave to them. That means that money should be null and void. If we can't get money for the work that our ancestors have done for free in this country, then the people who receive for free should not get any of the benefits at all. None. Absolutely not. Because that's what's fair. And if you are going to say, well, that's not fair, it's their ancestors got the money. Well, guess what? Our ancestors did the work. So pay the fuck up. That's how it goes. If you want to be logical, let's be logical. Hi, welcome to RVN. My name is Jaybe. Nice to have you. If you guys have not, please go ahead and give the stream a like. Let's continue. Remember the move bombing that happened in the 1980s? Yes, the United States actually bombed a black neighborhood in the 1980s. Oh, yeah, you guys didn't realize that, did you? Oh, yeah, it's not that far back. I was a baby. I was a little kid. The United States government would never do that. So, when the white moderates and liberals say, well, just do things peacefully, just do things more organized. That should be the answer. That should be the answer. Let's continue on. Take it away, JT.
If violent protest is illegal, and nonviolent protest gets your liberal supposed supporters to condemn your movement, what recourse do you have to effect change? There's a reason imperial core countries are actively trying to criminalize various forms of protest.
Now, as we speak right now, the National Guard is actually detaining pro-Palestinian protesters in the subways in New York. That's it, right? So, who's to blame? Governor Kathy Hochul. But guess what? I don't care if you're a conservative. You'll be like, well, look, that's a blue state. Ron DeSantis has also made it so that he limits the types of protests that we can do here in Florida. So it goes on both sides of the coin. So don't sit there and go, red states are doing this or blue states are doing that. They're all part of the same, two cheeks on the same ass. And in between them is just poop. That's all it is. I'm telling you right now, when people talk about, when they try to do red states do this or blue states do that, that's just partisanship. That's the red game, blue game. You might as well be talking about the Yankees versus the Red Sox. And the funny part about it is they're all owned by the same people.
They have a vested interest in things remaining the same. As Kwame Ture said in his 1969 book, The Pitfalls of Liberalism, what a liberal really wants is to bring about change which will not in any way endanger his position. That is, of course, impossible when we're talking about fixing the systemic problems of racism, imperialism, and economic inequality. According to a 1966 Harris poll, King's favorable rating among white Americans was just 27%. Compare that to 95% today. That's how liberals operate. They oppose
27% favorable rating. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had a lower favorable rating before he died than Joe Biden does right now. Think about that. 27% approval? We're talking about how Joe Biden is going to get creamed in November, and he has what, a 34 to 36% approval rating? Try 27%. That's how much they hated him. And yet now they say, oh, we love him, we praise him. We'll build monuments in his name. But when it comes to the things that he actually advocated for, they're not willing to actually do it. What did Dr. Martin Luther King say? We're going to come and get our check. Every single time we try to get our check, guess what? Oh, well, we just need to do research on it. There's no more research that needs to be done. I had the gentleman, the activist on from the Negro Collective on my channel. Not this Saturday, but the last Saturday. We talked about reparations. The research is done. Right? Yet they still don't want to do it.
They oppose any attempts at emancipation while they're happening, then pretend they were always on the side of the righteous when they have the benefit of history books telling them who the good guys were. There's a great tweet that really sums up this liberal tendency. A liberal is someone who opposes every war except the current war and supports all civil rights movements except the one going on right now.
Think about what's going on in Gaza. Think about that. Think about the liberals who are getting mad at us for standing up and saying ceasefire now. Think about them. Right? these people, man, I'm telling you. Oh, gosh. Oh, and by the way, they did the same thing during the Iraq War.
Now, while MLK was outspoken in his disappointment with white liberals, Malcolm X went a critical step further and correctly labeled them an enemy of genuine progress and liberation. The conservatives are wolves. You know what they're up to. They're evil and they're honest. Not because they care about being honest, but because they're not afraid to wield power when they have it. The liberal is a fox, less outwardly threatening, even seemingly approachable, but still a predator. A conservative will usually be open about their racism and how they need to keep the dirty foreigners out, whereas a liberal will say things like, "I see you, I hear you, hate has no place here," and then they'll run campaign ads about how conservatives are failing to secure the southern border. Biden hasn't stopped building Trump's wall. That should tell you everything you need to know about the liberal approach to immigration. Pretend you're deeply concerned, and then do the same thing the conservatives are doing. Or take the genocide in Gaza. We've seen a handful of the more liberal Democrats speak out against what Israel is doing, which is no small feat for a politician in the United States. But then when push comes to shove, they do the evil thing anyway. As I'm writing this script, every single Senate Democrat just voted to continue funding the genocide in Gaza.
Shout out to Professor Zinkus. But yes, they're all complicit. This is why we say to leave both parties. Because you do not want to be complicit with accessories to murder. I don't care if it's AOC. I don't care if it's Pramila Jayapal. I don't care if it's Mark Pocan. I don't care if it's Bernie fucking Sanders. They are complicit in murder. Complicit. Do you want to be associated with people like that? I sure as hell don't.
Every single one. It's like the meme. The people on the receiving end of US militarism don't care whether the people who sent the bombs are deeply concerned about it. They're still sending the bombs. Socialists like me tend to joke about Democrats just being Republicans with a rainbow flag painted on their bombers, but it's absolutely true. The liberals' only objection to imperialism and global domination is on aesthetic grounds. They may say they're cool with gay people, but they're still going to turn the rest of the world to glass if it means maintaining our hegemony.
Yep.
A good example of this meaningless liberal pandering is when Pharrell recently sent Trump a cease and desist to stop Trump from using his songs at rallies. And then he turned around and performed at a fundraising gala for the IDF. The people who've killed...
So they can talk about how they have solidarity with people who are marginalized, and yet somebody like Pharrell Williams, he'll still allow and play for Zionists. Beyonce can talk all she wants about women's empowerment. She can talk all she wants about Black liberation. She can even, put on a Black military suit, hold up the fist all she wants, and yet she is still going to perform in Israel, where the IDF literally trains our police force to bash us in the head here. Does she really have solidarity with her people? TLDR, no. Taylor Swift does not give a crap about us because she'll also perform in Tel Aviv because it makes her money, even though all of those women, and by the way, the instance of miscarriages has went up 300% in Gaza. But that doesn't mean much to her because she wants to play in the only democracy that's in the Middle East. By the way, just to let you know, there were other democracies in the Middle East beforehand. Mohammed Mossadegh was democratically elected in Iran until the United States showed up. Democracy, my ass. Let's continue.
Who've killed 11,000 children in the past few months, who have targeted doctors saving injured people, journalists who showed the world what's happening, the people who blindfolded him to run and then sniped him in the back of the head. Okay, celebrities is one thing, but when you have a liberal world, that's when things get really dangerous. Take Trudeau, for example. In response to one of the many ongoing protests for Palestine in Canada, on February 13th, he posted the following on Twitter. The demonstration at Mount Sinai Hospital yesterday was reprehensible. Hospitals are places for treatment and care, not protest and intimidation. I strongly condemn this display of anti-Semitism. In Toronto and across Canada, we stand with Jewish communities against this hate. This is insane. If you've been online at all in the last 5 months, you'll know where I'm going with this. Justin Trudeau, liberal darling, has supported to the hilt the Israeli apartheid regime, which has found every single hospital in Gaza out of operation. Not only that, these monsters also dressed as doctors and nurses and infiltrated a hospital to shoot and terrorize the patients and heroic staff inside.
Isn't Justin Trudeau the same guy that actually stood in applause for a Nazi soldier? Scratch a liberal. Scratch a liberal, baby. And it bleeds.
To the liberal, walking outside a hospital and demanding justice is a bridge too far. But butchering an entire population because it serves the interest of capital is perfectly acceptable. The justification for statements like Trudeau's has always been opposing anti-Semitism. That obviously doesn't work anymore. It's an absurd claim to make that criticizing a genocidal apartheid regime is anti-Semitic. And it's become even more clearly absurd now that we've seen hundreds of thousands of Jewish people around the world stand up against Israel's ethnic cleansing campaign and say, "You do not represent us." All you have to do is look at footage from within Israel itself. Jews are brutalized by the fascist police for daring to speak out against the regime. The anti-Semitism charge obviously doesn't work anymore, so the liberals have fallen back on what they do best, weaponizing vague feelings. The main objection to rallies for Palestine now is that it makes people feel uncomfortable or unsafe on college campuses in the West. Here's an example.
Well, what do you know? Who is that tweet that we see there? Well, isn't it our comrade Nick from RBN? Isn't you just love to see it? What did Nick say? Let's take a look. He said, "These white women tears are one of the most dangerous weapons in the world. These white tears got countless black men murdered. These white tears enabled the bombing of brown kids and genocide." Zay Squirrel said this video of some college students literally crying crocodile tears because there's a pro-Palestinian demonstration happening as they hysterically demand the security guard to arrest them all perfectly encapsulates Zionism and its depraved cult of fake victimhood. Let's continue.
It's an example that's been making the rounds online.
I want him dead. Please end it, please.
Aside,
by the way, the young lady that's like, "They want us dead," she's there with her Starbucks coffee in hand. Oh my God. They want to kill us. They want me dead. Can you believe this? You need to arrest them all. Oh, this pumpkin spice latte is so good. Should got an extra shot of espresso. Meanwhile, there are little girls that are her age that are under the rubble in Gaza.
Aside from the fact that those are the most obvious fake tears you've ever seen, I want you to think about the absurdity of this display. Claiming to feel unsafe in your insular little university versus this.
مين بدك مين بدك؟
امي مع اخويا.
طيب انت ايش؟
اخويا ابو نسرة كمان.
طب مين عند مين؟ عند مين؟ عند مين؟ عند مين؟
That's what unsafe looks like. You feel uncomfortable? Think about how uncomfortable it is to have no food or clean water, no shelter, no hygiene products, your family killed, the places you've been told will be safe purposefully targeted with bombing runs. Liberals have no right to cry crocodile tears and pretend to feel unsafe. Of course, they'll still do it, and sometimes it will work. There are very few weapons as dangerous as a white woman's tears, as minorities have learned the hard way throughout history. Enough.
How do you think Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma got burned to the ground? White woman's tears. That's how an entire city, an economic center, got burned to the ground. How do you think Emmett Till died? Tears of a white woman, even though he was falsely accused. Tied him to a back of a truck and dragged his body. Beat him, bludgeoned. Then they dumped his body in a body of water. That's what they did to Emmett Till. The lady who made the claim, she recently died as an old lady comfortable in her bed. She got to live her rest of her life into old age. Emmett Till was only, 13, 14 years old? We know what it's like.
Enough pretend fear and they get what they want. In this case, the criminalizing of solidarity with the people currently being exterminated. I made a tweet the other day that said, "One thing that's been bothering me recently is that I have no power to make liberals care. I can say, I will never again speak to someone who still supports Israel, but what good is that? The hate and powerlessness I feel is something I haven't experienced before." I had one commenter respond with something I think is important to share. This is how colonized people have felt forever. Liberals act like they care, but they don't. They really, really don't. And their fake performative caring actually makes it way worse. At least right-wingers are honest.
And this is why we talk about the Democratic Party the way we do. If I have a pile of doo-doo sitting right there, you know it's a pile of doo-doo. I ain't got to tell you nothing. You see it, you smell it, you see the flies all over it, you know exactly what it is, baby. I ain't got to tell you nothing. But if someone took some ice cream scoops and then molded it to look like ice cream and put some chocolate sprinkles on top, wouldn't it be incumbent upon me to go, hey, don't touch that. Don't touch that. That's doo-doo. It just looks like chocolate ice cream. It don't smell good, does it? Because they don't want you to know that they are the covert imperialists, covert racists, covert sexists. Yes, sexist, because if they actually cared about women, they would have codified Roe v. Wade into law. They're covert homophobes and transphobes. Yes, covert. Because if they actually would have actually cared about those of us who are LGBTQ, they would have given us free healthcare so that our trans siblings can actually get their care that they need. We wouldn't have to go and break the bank for the medications, especially for HIV medications, for PrEP and all that. We wouldn't have to do that. We would have housing for all. So that all those little LGBTQ youth that get kicked out of their houses and live on the street homeless, they wouldn't have to worry about being homeless. If they actually cared about those of us that are disabled, would our disability checks be as low as they are right now? See, that's the thing. There's covert and there's overt. Conservatives, overt. Liberals, covert.
That's a great point, and it echoes what Malcolm X said half a century ago. Liberals are no better than conservatives. They're often even more bloodthirsty, as we've seen with their recent behavior. The only thing that separates a liberal servant of empire from a conservative one is that the liberal will lie through their teeth to make it seem like they're on your side. At least when a conservative says they want you dead, you can believe it and brace for impact. With a liberal, you have to be a lot more vigilant. Conservatives don't care if they have the moral high ground. They want what they want, and they don't care how you feel about it. A liberal will twist themselves into knots trying to convince you, and often themselves, that they are the moral arbiter of modern politics. Even the liberals who are critical of Joe Biden and the wider West's enabling of this genocide often speak out in a way that ends up reinforcing belief in liberalism. Take the recent drama surrounding Jon Stewart. He said some common sense stuff about Biden and really pissed off the vote blue no matter who crowd. But his criticisms also really resonated with the masses of more casual liberals in the Imperial core. His statements were intended to air the concerns of people starting to feel cognitive dissonance about their support of genocide, and then to steer them back into the fold of the Democratic Party. Yeah, Biden may be too old for the job, but we'll do better next time. The most important thing is keeping Trump out of the White House. Things would be so much worse under a Republican, believe me. Never mind, of course, that things are only this bad because Biden, liberal champion of peace and freedom, has personally refused to call off his attack dog and has instead spent billions of dollars of your tax money to fund the massacre of tens of thousands of men, women, and children whose only crime is trying to prevent the slow-rolling eradication of their people and their history.
Oh my gosh. If Trump gets into office, the genocide is going to be even worse. That's like telling a domestic violence victim, well, even though your new boyfriend is beating you to a pulp, well, if you get back with your old boyfriend, well, he'll beat you even more. So you might as well stay with this boyfriend. Does that make sense to you? Stay with your abuser because the other option is more abuse? Does that make sense? Doesn't make sense to me. It's either die by fire, die by burning, or die by drowning. Which one do you want? Meanwhile, we're just trying to say we don't want to die at all.
I could go on like this, or hell, I could just leave the video running and play the hundreds of hours of footage showing what Western liberals are enabling in Gaza. Children torn to pieces hanging from piles of rubble. A man so stricken with grief that he loses consciousness after being told his entire family has been killed. A beautiful little girl, my daughter's age, standing alone in the cold, waiting for parents who will never come back. But I know that footage will not soften the liberal heart. If they've made it this far and not changed their mind, they are irredeemable. And I...
That part. They are TFG. Too far gone. How do you allow these corporate dictators to push you to remove your humanity from yourself, to take your humanity away? How do you allow that? My God. But you have the wherewithal to fake it? You fake your humanity, but when it comes into question, you just leave it behind? That's sadistic. Damn.
And I will not waste any more of my time trying to win over my enemy. And for those who think I'm being overly harsh and that liberals are annoying but really all dangerous, I'll cite just one more historical fact. Every time liberals have been given the choice between socialism and fascism, they have sided with fascism. And when I say they've sided with fascism, that's actually a little misleading. Yes, normal liberals, the individuals, will always pick a well-dressed white fascist over a scary urban communist. But liberals, the political organism, don't really choose to side with fascism as much as they devolve into it. Fascism is rooted in the same Western mythology as liberalism. Whereas in times of peace and prosperity, liberalism has all the frills and niceties normal people would expect from a first world country. As soon as the economic base falters, as soon as the lines start to go down, the mask comes off. It's often said that fascism is capitalism in decay. And if there's one thing we've seen with the United States since the Reagan years, it's that capitalism is on the decline. There's a reason we're always at war, why our civil liberties are being curtailed under conservative and liberal leaders alike, why Joe Biden is holding twice as many immigrants in cages as Trump was at the end of his term, why we're backing Israel to the very last Palestinian. When capital has to circle the wagons to maintain its dominance, its rhetoric and actions start to look a lot like fascism. The reason for this is simple. Fascism is seen as a solution to an economic problem, just as socialism is. But the difference is that fascism does not threaten the primacy of capital, or the comfortable position of the white liberal. Economic hardship creates conditions where bitterness, distrust, and desperation can thrive, making the masses an easy target for charismatic and bombastic fascists. I'll end with a gentle warning for new socialists, people who understand that imperialism is wrong, but who may still harbor some liberal ideology from their upbringing. There's this pervasive belief that if you just show people enough data that something is bad, we'll reach a critical mass of collective outrage, and then suddenly, through legal and government-approved means, we'll be able to stop the bad thing. That's just not how the real world works. That's become abundantly clear in the last 5 months. Bit by bit, our rights to protest, to assemble, to speak out are being taken away. The Palestinian people have tried peaceful protest for years. They've tried appealing to international bodies. They've tried everything. They are well within their rights to resist their executioners by whatever means they deem appropriate. No amount of liberal hand-wringing and phony moral objections will change that fact.
You don't get freedom peacefully. Freedom is never safeguarded peacefully. Anyone who is depriving you of freedom isn't deserving of a peaceful approach by the ones who are being deprived of their freedom.
A few times in the last couple of years,
Think about how this country got started. Was it through peaceful means? Did somebody just write a very flowery, nicely worded letter to King George and say, "Dearest King George, we would like to have our independence. Would you be willing to give that to us?" And then King George said, "You know what? I think that's a really great idea. You guys can have your independence as well. I think we have enough riches here in England. You go ahead. You guys have your own country now." Is that how it went down in 1776? If you think that's how it went down, then you need a history lesson. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never have, and it never will. Right there. If there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who profess to favor freedom yet depreciate agitation are men who want crops without plowing the ground. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its many waters. And it may be both moral and physical, but it must be a struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will. Frederick Douglass. Now, let's finish this.
I found myself thinking, surely not these liberals. Surely this friend or this educated person or this family member will be different. And they disappoint every single time. At some point, all decent people have to realize that liberals are as much the enemy as conservatives. They may weaponize inclusive language, they may try to trick you into thinking they care, but it's a lie. The Western liberal position on Palestine should be the final nail in the coffin of liberal legitimacy. And I know it's not my job to call people out like this. I know my role is to be inclusive and offer a charitable on-ramp into socialist ideas. But sometimes you just have to tell it like it is. Malcolm X was right. Liberals are the most dangerous thing in the Western Hemisphere. I mentioned at the beginning.
Thank you so much for that, JT. Much appreciated. I want to share something with you guys, because people will say, well, there just has to be another way. And we exhaust whatever we can do in order to mitigate any harm to the people. That's what we do, right? Because we want people to be as safe as possible. But we have to be vigilant. Let me share this with you guys, because this is from Kwame Ture. So take this as a lesson.
One more question. I'm sorry.
I'd just like to state an opinion. You said that capitalism is backwards and it should be destroyed. Stupid,
reactionary,
repulsive.
and barbaric. No, I didn't use the word
Yeah.
repulsive. That's too mild.
Well, I'd just like to say my opinion that I think violence is barbaric and stupid and repulsive, and that's my opinion.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a liberal. Now, let's listen to how Kwame Ture responds to this liberal posturing, this paternalistic moral posturing, with a question.
But please, may I ask you a question, please? Just for clarification. All right, now, I'm not sure, are you agreeing that capitalism is bad, or you don't think it's bad?
I didn't say.
Huh?
I didn't say anything about it.
But what do you think about it?
Capitalism?
Yes.
Well,
well, let me ask you this question.
I live in a capitalist society.
Okay, let me make it easier.
Okay, yeah, please.
If you were a slave and I were your master, and the only way for you to be free was to strike your blow to kill me, what would you do? You didn't answer? Oh. I didn't hear him answer.
Liberation is always a struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. A lot of times when we talk about these things, a lot of times people go, what do we do? Because there's really, it seems hopeless, and that's not the goal. This is to wake people up. to let them know, look, they're not on your side. But what can be done? Building community is one of the best ways to grow and to create a dual power so that we can actually liberate ourselves from this system that keeps us subjugated. There are different organizations that we can join in order to not only learn, but to also do mutual aid and grow. Here in Orlando, we have the Orlando RBN Mutual Aid Group. So whenever we have our next action, make sure to tune in to RBN, to Community Notes, and I will put that out there so you guys can join us in doing mutual aid, actual action on the ground. And then you can associate with us and you can learn and grow just like we're learning and growing together. There's Real Orlando. They do great work on the ground. They're teaching here in Orlando. They do, in fact, let me share their Instagram so that you guys have that link as well. Because these are groups where you can actually not only do on the ground work, but learn together with them as well as build community. And that's also deeply important because that is how we change things. So I'm going to share the screen really quick. So these are some of the groups. This is some of the groups here in Orlando. And I'm sure there are other groups in your respective city that you can join. There is, for instance, I know Nick from RBN, our comrade Nick, he talks about KC tenants. So if you're in Kansas City, then you can probably join a tenants union or a tenants organization, right? If you're near Boston area, you can join Sabby Sabs and her mutual aid chapter in Boston. If you're near Detroit, you can team up with Rome. If you're in LA, you can team up with CJ. But these are some of the things that you can do. This is Real Orlando. I put the link in the chat. They also do People's Free Kitchen. I put out a video a few weeks back of me interviewing the person who runs People's Free Kitchen. And they were talking about having a politic of care, taking care of the unhoused in their community, and also using that as a means to teach, to build up the working class so that we can have solidarity with one another and then build that dual power. So this is some of the ways in which we can do something even when we may feel hopeless. So do not adopt the same morally depraved, morally repugnant ideology of the liberals, because they do not care about you. They do not care about workers. Stick with your community and learn from them. All the great revolutionaries were involved in communities. That's how it's done. Go ahead and give the video a like. That pushes it out into the algorithm. Thank you so very much for that as well. If you guys want to join our mailing list so you guys get email notifications, you guys can go to revolutionaryblackout.substack.com. That alerts us to whenever we have any live streams or clips that are uploaded, so you guys can have that. Thank you very much. For any type of inquiries, serious inquiries only, you guys can also go to info@revblacknetwork.com. So you guys have that as well. Thank you so very much for that. And then you guys can go to our website at revolutionaryblackoutnetwork.com. So thank you so very much for that. While I have you here, I just wanted to give a shout out to our graphics designer. Our graphics designer helps us out with the clips. So if you would like to, you can go to Venmo at Revolutionary Blackout or donate the Cash App $ Mutual Aid Forever. They do great work as well. Just to let you guys know, we are also raising money for our next action at RBN Orlando chapter. So if you guys would like to, you guys can donate to Orlando RBN on Cash App. So it's $ Orlando RBN. So we have that as well. We're trying to plan our next action within the next few weeks. We're about to hit our rainy season. We want to make sure that we do, what we can for our unhoused neighbors here in Orlando. So if you guys would like to, you can also donate there as well. So thank you so much for that. And I am making sure to put that link in the chats. There is a comrade as well that is going through a lot. She is without water. And if anybody knows anything about human survival, we cannot survive without water. So I want to share her information just so that if anybody wishes to give her some assistance at all, then this will help. It is deeply appreciated. Make sure I find. If you can help her out at all, that's very much appreciated. Here we go. So let me share my screen really quick, and then we'll give a shout out to the patrons, and then we will continue on into the chat. So her bill is past due. She's in need of $783.27. So if you guys can help out, let me enlarge this so that you guys can see this is her PayPal and her Venmo. I will be putting the links in the chat as well for her. She is local here. Oop. She is local here, and she's trying to survive right now. So let me put the links in the chat as well for you guys to, if in case you would like to, or if you're able to, help her out there as well. So thank you so very much in advance to everybody who is so generous to help her out. So, of course, you guys know, I mean, even just to flush your toilet, it's a sanitary issue, and people should not have to go through that, especially not in this country. So thank you so very much for that. All right. So now, just want to give a shout out to our patrons on Patreon. They are amazing. And without you guys, we would not be able to do this type of work. So love and solidarity to all the patrons on Patreon. We have our RBN patrons, our what happened? Wait, what? Okay, hang on. Sorry, it's my first time doing it. Here we go. We can do it that way. All right. All right. So thank you so much to the patrons on Patreon who are watching. We have any media enthusiasts. So also thank you for your patronage. And then we have RB and Homie. That's another tier as well on Patreon. And the Patreon is linked in the description below as well if you guys would like to. The deeply serious and the real ones. So thank you so very much for being patrons on Patreon. And then revolutionaries, thank you so very much. Means the world to all of us. So, with that being said, now just going to go to the chat. I'm going to start off in the Rockfin chat because I want to make sure I get to the Rockfin chat because I have missed out. And then we'll get to our final story for the day. So let me go here. We're no strangers to love. Okay. Sorry. Get in my element. So Gene says, hey guys, do you think that the deep state despots that are actually in charge are liberals? I don't. I think they love it when you trash them. I think they're a mix. When in reality, you know, the people who own our politicians are both liberal and conservative. But ultimately, they're all dictators, corporate dictators. Roger Meadows, thank you so much for the tip on Rockfin. Says, yes, Jay, liberals will pretend to be for immigration. When they show up at Martha's Vineyard, it's, oh, we love you. Here's a hug and a bus pass to New York City. Go there. They get there and then push them into Black communities who have been starved of resources, but wouldn't dare put them in liberal, white, and bougie Negro communities. They will be the ones who will yell Black Lives Matter, but call the cops when we're walking through their neighborhood. This is absolutely true. Because the thing is that they will take a BLM sticker and they will tout it all day, every day. But the moment we move in next to them, that's when it's a problem. Thank you very much. Gene Whitworth says, so liberals are the ones that believe in liberty and share resources liberally. Do you seriously think anyone with power in the federal government does this? No is the answer. So how the F are they liberals? Liberal is really a right-wing ideology. That's my answer for that. They are a pro-corporate ideology. So the conservatives and the liberals are both pro-corporate. Roger Meadows says, Jay, she left out the provocateurs, aka police, that blend into the crowd to start property damage so the uniform cops have an excuse. Also, Pete, what Stan Lee said in his own words regarding Xavier and Magneto being compared to Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. You are not going to get the answer you think. Interesting. Oh. Okay, hang on. Let me share this. Hang on. Roger, you be dropping gems, bro. Hang on. Okay. Let's go.
What's good, y'all? This conversation is still happening, so I figured I'd do another video.
Okay, he's tripping me out with the Sowell in the background. Like that, Thomas Sowell is basically just coontastic.
on it. Now, go watch my video titled X-Men and the Social Justice Myth. You should still go watch that. There's been some other videos that I've done on this topic as well that you probably want to take a look at. But X-Men, people are talking about it right now because the X-Men 97 thing happened, and because there was these conflicting reports about Morph. You had, of course, these folks going around perpetuating the myth again that is a complete lie, that the X-Men were created to be similar to the civil rights era, or black injustice, gay injustice, or something of that nature, or of course that long-standing lie, which is a relatively recent phenomenon. I say long-standing, but it is a relatively recent phenomenon, with the lie that is Professor X and Magneto are somehow Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. Just not true, objectively. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to listen in to a radio show that happened back in 2007 on Coast to Coast with George Nuri. He actually had a fill-in that day. So Ian Punnett was the one that was hosting it. So let's just listen in. We're going to listen in directly to Stan Lee's words here. Check this out right here. Let's listen in.
I mean, there are things like that people catch that you may not have even known that you were putting in there. But
you
obviously...
are so right. Now take the X-Men. I was just originally trying to get an interesting group of characters with interesting powers, and I thought it would make it twice as interesting if the public really didn't like them that much. And if they had to worry about their reception by the outside world, little by little, I began getting mail saying how great it is that I'm doing these stories about bigotry and the evils of bigotry and so forth, and race hatred. And I guess I was doing that, but I was doing it subconsciously. That wasn't the main purpose.
So that is
interesting. Okay. Well, either way, it was a good idea. So thank you very much for that, Roger. All right. Let's continue in the chat. Let me see. So Roger says, those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. John F. Kennedy. Jaybe, there are a lot of people out here talking about revolution in the most extreme case. That type of revolution requires being willing to die and be willing to take a life. I suggest before going that route, you think real hard if you are willing to do that. Because first people to drop their guns and wave the white flag are usually the first to run, I guess. I actually spoke about, and thank you for that, Roger. I actually spoke about revolution on my channel, and one of the things I said is that revolution is more than just taking up an armed struggle. Revolution, the actual term for revolution, means a complete turning around. A revolution means that is not just an armed struggle. A revolution means a ideological struggle. It means a struggle to reestablish a new system that starts off in parallel with the old system, but then it has more people come on board because that new system actually is better for the workers, for the proletariat, than the old system was. And this also requires people who are adept at housing, education, construction, farming, food. It is not just, oh, pick up your piece and go fight. Teaching can be revolutionary. taking care of the kids can be a revolutionary act. Art is revolutionary. So when it comes to things like that, I think that's the point, is that it's not just that. It's not limited to just armed struggle. It is also the struggle to give housing, give food, give healthcare. Revolution with the Black Panthers was starting when they were feeding little kids food in the free breakfast program. That was revolution. Revolution was when the Black Panther Party, Liberation, when they were doing free health clinics. That was revolution. That was the start, the beginning of a revolution. And then on top of that, they got their pieces and then they protected the neighborhood. It wasn't looking for a fight. It was trying to prevent harm from coming to people. That's what it was. So I just wanted to, add to the point that Roger was saying, was that it is a fully encompassing program that helps people to have their material conditions met. That's what it is. In a system that does not want you to have your material conditions met unless you're willing to engage in acts of slavery, whether it be wage slavery, chattel slavery, or otherwise. Make sense? All right, so let's go to the rest of the chat. Thank you so much to MJR for becoming a YouTube member. Clap it up for MJR. Thank you so very much. It means the world to us. Jima Maru says, thank you very much for the super chat. One disturbing trend I notice is that people from countries that the U.S. has destroyed come here and they mix with white liberals. Those same people soon develop a bloodlust towards their own home countries. Okay. You just said, let's talk about it. A lot of the people that come from other countries, I think there's a law that you have to have a formal education from some countries before you're even allowed to come to the United States. And these people are already on the upper echelons of society in their own country, and then they come here. See, they wouldn't dare allow a working class person from Madurai, India, to come here, especially if they have left-wing proclivities. They wouldn't dare. They wouldn't dare have a working class Venezuelan come and move here. They wouldn't dare, because ultimately they want as many people who are predisposed to corporations than they would be to actually having a different and better system. That's how they operate. Why do you think that the United States is so game on having Ukrainians come in here, and they'll give them the whole store? Hey, come on in. We know what's going on with you guys over there. Just come on in, and then you guys can have citizenship here. Come on in. You guys don't have to wait. Yet they won't do the same damn thing for Palestinians. Makes you wonder, right? Yeah. That's why you'll have some immigrants that are very hostile to undocumented immigrants or people on the left. Just like the Southern Vietnamese do not like communism, right? And they will be more likely to be be assisted to come in here into this government. But if you're North Vietnamese and you're sympathetic to the Viet Cong, oh no, you can't do that. That's how they are. All right, let's continue into the rest of the chat. Rondo says sometimes you have to call a spade. Sometimes you have to call a spade a little effing shovel. They do like shovels, don't they? Yeah. Thank you so much for that. 18 says, yeah, I see John Brown like a Aaron Bushnell. At least we know they are both very serious and horrified by what they witnessed. Absolutely. Yeah. Huey says, organize, educate, and organize some more. Yep. Yep. Let me see here. The Sand Queen says, I understand people don't want violence because they think they think of people getting hurt, but they don't realize everyone is being hurt anyway. Comment of the day, Sand Queen. Look, I'm gonna level with you guys, and I'm gonna add on to Sand Queen's comment. Homelessness is violence. It is. The way people are subject to the elements, the way people are subject to being worried about their potential items being stolen or potentially being harmed by other people, that homelessness is violence. Hunger is violence. Living in poverty is violence. Subjecting people to having education paywalled is actually violence. Because how many of you would actually be doing something even better if you could? How many of you would be helping the world in different ways if you were not subject to that violence? Think about it. Think about us Black people. If we actually had gotten reparations like we were promised by General Sherman, how many of us would actually have what we need in order to be able to continue? So that there wouldn't be a racial gap. See, all these different things are violence. So that's one of the issues. It is violence that is perpetuated throughout this system. So thank you very much for that. Pizza the Hut. Yes, support community agriculture. If you guys can, I implore you. Let's say you have an apartment with a yard, condo with the yard, or you got a backyard that, it's your own home. Could you get together with your community and start planting some simple vegetables so that you can distribute it not only to have for yourself, but also for some of your neighbors? Just an idea. Look, and I plan on doing this. I have some scallions in my fridge. Once I use those, take the ends of them, put them in some water, and they start to regrow. So you ain't got to go back to the grocery store to buy no scallions. You can do that too. Just think about it. Data says, we're no strangers to love. You know the rules, and so do I. Never gonna give you up. Never gonna let you down. Oh my goodness. DC says, listen to Love Me, I'm a Liberal by the late great revolutionary folk musician Phil Ox. He teaches us on that exact point. Oh, I gotta listen to that. Thank you so much. All right, so let me see here. Ooh, Jared says, just bought a piece of land I plan to do with that with. Oh, nice. Okay. Good deal. Good deal. And you can just have your neighbors come in. You don't have to do it all yourself. You know, you can just, help, your neighbors, and your neighbors, help you. Next thing you know, y'all got some free food. All right. So I need to check. Actually, no, I don't need to check there. Okay. So we're going to get to our next story right now. Biden, his own worst enemy. I got to tell you, someone like Joe Biden, he proverbially shoots himself in the foot each and every time. And yeah, it is not looking good for him. So let's get into it. Joe Biden had his State of the Union address on Thursday evening. It was a dumpster fire, to say the least, with calling undocumented immigrants illegals and trying to say what he's doing for the economy, even though last time I talked to my wallet was actually laughing at me. No doubt your wallet was laughing at you too. And yet now, when it comes to this genocide that's happening, that he is bankrolling, we can say that, right? Bankrolling a genocide, I would say so. People are asking him and demanding of him to end the genocide. They're calling for ceasefires. And as he continues to pay out dividends to the state of Israel, it's harming him politically. It's like just proverbially 1,000 knives with each dollar. Just boom, 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 boom. Joe Biden is his own worst enemy. And let's take a look here.
You're heading to Michigan, where on the campaign trail, probably in the next few days, where more than 100,000 people voted uncommitted in the primary to protest your handling of the situation in Gaza. Some have said they will never vote for you. One told Charles Blow of the New York Times, and I'm quoting, "As bad as Mr. Trump's rhetoric was and him putting a travel ban on 5 Muslim countries, he wasn't overseeing and actively arming a genocide." Those are tough words. What's your response to that widely shared sentiment?
It's not widely shared. You guys make judgments you're not capable of making. That's not what all those people said. What they said was they're very upset, and I don't blame them for being upset.
Joe Biden's hilarious. They said that they will never vote for him. 100,000 people in Michigan voted uncommitted in the Michigan primary because of the genocide. That's not what they're saying. What are they saying, Joseph, what are they saying? What are they saying then? Well, let the delusions begin.
For being upset. There are families there. There are people who are dying. They want something done about it. And they're saying, Joe, do something. Do something. But the idea that they all think is genocide is just not, that's a different situation. Look.
How is it a different, wait. Beep, back up the truck. How is it a different situation? Joseph, you're the one who's literally giving them at least $3 billion a year for them to commit atrocities, and not just Gaza, but also the West Bank. Do not pee on our heads and tell us it's raining, Joseph. Because what's going on, if the United States did not facilitate financially Israel, this genocide would probably not be happening. And yet you're saying it's not that way? Denial's not just a river in Egypt, Joseph. And it damn sure ain't the Suez Canal.
I can fully understand. Can't you? You have a family member there. A family member, families are come from a family that is still isolated there.
Wait. What did JT say? What does the white liberal say? I see you. I hear you. I feel your pain. What did he say? What did we just go over in the last segment? They're gonna feign care. They're gonna act like, oh my God, this hurts me too. Oh my goodness, right-wing Netanyahu. Oh, he's bad. Meanwhile, the liberal Zionists want to keep the settlements there. They just want to oppress more quietly. Baby, let's continue.
And may be victimized. It's understandable they feel that way. And that's why I'm doing everything I can to try to stop it.
Bullshit. You look into those crow's feet ass dead eyes, squinted dead eyes, and tell me he's actually honestly telling the truth. I was born at night, not last night, Joseph. Goodness gracious. So, that's what Joe recently said. There are a lot of people that are really responding now to Joe Biden about this genocide. It is unavoidable. This is why I say he is his own worst enemy. They shouldn't have let him out of the basement. I'm telling you right now.
I say thank you.
Thank you. Look, I don't resent.
I want you guys to take into account the white liberals that are in the crowd. When somebody tries to resist Joe Biden, the crowd basically circles the wagons and starts screaming 4 more years because they want to drown out the voice of a dissenter that is actually speaking up for Palestinian liberation. This is the white liberal that I was talking about in the last segment. When you're at a town hall and then you speak up, the white liberals will circle the wagons and prevent you from actually speaking the truth to power. They do not want you to do that. These are the same ones that will speak truth to power when it's Trump in office, but then when Biden is in office doing the exact same thing, oh, you can't do that. Oh, no, you better not.
I don't resent his passion. There's a lot of Palestinians who are being unfairly victimized. I want to say thank you.
Unfairly victimized. That's an understatement, Joseph. And there's more. There are so many people right now that are going through it. But yet, I just want to share this because this goes in the same line of the white moderates. The white moderates are also at the anchor desks of the corporate media. And they'll take up for Joe Biden. They will defend his actions, but there's no defending this.
15,000 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli airstrikes, 3/4 of whom are women and children.
And it's horrible, but you don't see Israeli soldiers raping.
Well, Dana, I think
Palestinian women.
we're not 15.
Any wonder why a lot of people who typically watch corporate media ends up siding with people like Joe Biden? He is his own worst enemy. His devotion to the state of Israel will be his undoing. Now, despite some disagreements between us and Jordan Sheraton, I want to applaud Jordan Sheraton for getting this footage in Washington, D.C. Jordan Sheraton says, breaking, ceasefire now protesters are trying to block President Biden's motorcade from driving to the State of the Union. This happened on Thursday evening. So let's take a look. It's not looking good for Joseph. I want to share this as well. That I actually shared this yesterday with one of my comrades, Valerie. But this is Real Clear Politics. This basically takes an aggregate of all the poll numbers for a particular poll and then averages out, because there's typically polls typically skew one way or another. So just want to, get the more aggregate, so it gets more of a true reflection of people's feelings versus it being more skewed in one way or another in favor of either liberals or conservatives. So, but this is what is said through Real Clear Politics. Let me share this with you guys as well. So this is about the general election, Trump versus Biden. So it goes over all of the polls. You have the Emerson, YouGov, Morning Consult, CBS, New York Times, Fox, Forbes, Wall Street, Quinnipiac, Rasmussen, all those polls, right? If you look at the RCP average, Real Clear Politics average, Trump is still beating Biden. Trump is beating Biden by 1.8 points, 47.6 to 45.8. I want you guys to think about this. They have been touting Trump as the second coming of Satan himself. Trump is an orange Beelzebub, right? That's what they've been touting Trump as. And even still, Biden can't beat him. That tells you everything you need to know about Joe Biden. That Joe Biden is horrible. And it is exacerbated by what's going on in Gaza. This is why the person who beats Joe Biden in this election cycle will be Joe Biden. He is his own worst enemy. His devotion to Zionism, his devotion to the corporations, well, that is what's going to finish his political career. And just in time, too, because I don't think his brain can take it anymore. Now, there's an interesting part of this poll that I also want to go to. General election, Trump versus Biden versus RFK Jr. versus Dr. West versus Dr. Jill Stein. Yes. And look at this. It's actually worse for Biden. So Trump comes out on top with 41.1%. Biden comes out with 38.4%. So it's a wider margin by 2.7 percentage points. Then RFK Jr. comes in with 12.7%. Dr. Cornel West comes in with 2.6%, and Dr. Jill Stein comes in with 1.7% respectively. And if you look at this, Joe Biden only comes out on top with 1 percentage point in the Quinnipiac poll. This means that even people who vote within the duopoly have a bad taste in their mouth when it comes to Joe Biden. So much so that they're willing to go back to the tangerine-colored devil because of Joe Biden. You can't you can't make this stuff up. Truth is stranger than fiction. Joe Biden is his worst enemy. He is his own worst enemy. People are sick and tired. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a huge push to have more people vote uncommitted here in Florida, even though technically there is no Florida primary, because they all just basically made sure that it's only Biden on the ballot. It's kind of hilarious because Joe Biden also had a hot mic moment right after the the State of the Union address. I wanted to share this with you guys too, because I think this is interesting to say the least. So, shout out to Pat the Socialist. And shout out to Hotspot. Hotspot, they do great work with Nick of RBN and Nico House. So I want you guys to listen very closely.
Great speech. Really nice. I was telling your secretary, I was in Jordan and Israel this weekend, and just, you got to keep pushing what you're doing on the humanitarian stuff and all this stuff. So I told him, baby, show me this. Baby, sure, just
So, for those of you who did not hear, because the politician he was speaking to, I forget his name, but he actually was running for president back in 2020. He's that forgettable. But this is what Joe Biden said. He said, I told him, Bibi, and don't repeat this, but you and I are going to have a come to Jesus moment. Look, not to get religious on y'all, but do you know how many Palestinian Jews were probably killed since October 7th? If Jesus were born today, he probably would have been massacred as a little boy. Come to Jesus moment. Should have had that come to Jesus moment years ago. You didn't have that come to Jesus moment. What you did to allegedly to Tara Reid, did you? Joe, you didn't have that come to Jesus moment when you pushed for the Iraq war, did you? Did you have that come to Jesus moment when you made sure that nobody who has student loan debt is able to declare bankruptcy? Did you have a come to Jesus moment then? What about that come to Jesus moment when you wrote the 94 crime bill that Bill Clinton signed? What about the come to Jesus moment when you said you didn't want your kids to grow up in a racial jungle? You wrote the 94 crime bill that criminalized people for simple possession. Meanwhile, your son was doing simple possession. He was blowing clouds and sniffing up that twinkle twinkle. But yet he didn't go to prison because he's your son and because he is a little bit more melanin deficient than the rest of us. Joe, where was your come to Jesus moment when you were eulogizing Strom Thurmond and when you were against busing? Was that your come to Jesus moment? Look, I'm going to say this. Joe Biden will never have that moment because it's not in him. Never was. Never will be. If I were religious like I was back in the day, you can come to Jesus all you want, but Jesus will reject your ass. Joe Biden is his own worst enemy. There's so many layups he could have done in the last 4 years, but he didn't do it. Why? Because that is who he is. He's a servant of the empire. So, with that being said, leave the duopoly, because they're not good for any of us. Walk away from the duopoly. There are third-party and independent candidates. If you want to still engage in electoral politics, by all means. But don't forget the ballot initiatives. Like, for instance, here in Florida, we actually passed a $15 an hour minimum wage. Pay attention to those ballot initiatives. What's on the ballot here in Florida? The legalization of cannabis for recreational use. That's on the ballot. So pay attention to that. And then try to do some work on the ground. And by doing some work on the ground, it means just working with people in your community. You could be someone who has, who is disabled like myself. Could you be doing work over the phone for your community? Could you be doing some helping with the organizers online? Or if you can get out there, helping them out in whichever way you can, where you can, do it according to, while paying attention closely to your limitations. Or just speaking to people and pointing them in the right direction. Sometimes that's necessary too. But yes, do not stick with people who are fully committed to genocide, but they will lie to you in your face. These are the white liberals that MLK and Malcolm X warned us about. And just because they have our skin color, listen to what they're saying. Because even then, the ones who look like us but are pushing us into that direction, they're not with us either. And share information. Talk to your neighbors. Build community with them. Just by, hey, you know how to bake a pie? Go ahead, bake a pie. Go to your neighbor. Now, if they're diabetic, well, use sugar substitutes. But yeah, go ahead, make that sweet potato pie, bring it over to your neighbor and say, hey, I just wanted to introduce you to the neighborhood or welcome you to the neighborhood. So yeah, thank you very much for that. Go ahead and like it. All right. Let's go to the chat and let's have a conversation. I know this was really an opportunity for me to take, to take pot shots at Joe Biden. And I'll gladly do it. Why? Because we know who he is, right? But don't let anybody fool you, right? Some people are gonna be like, I just want to finish the job that Joe Biden started. You don't want them to finish that job. So thank you so very much. Roger says, Jay, the State Department of Immigration Services also tell Black immigrants now, you're not going to cause no trouble and team up with ADOS, right? In other words, if you do, you'll be a one-way ticket back. That's why they talk to us the way they do and not want to associate with us. That don't happen until the grandchildren, sometimes the children of Black immigrants. But that's what they tell the immigrants, not just Black. Yeah. However, some do defy that because they have solidarity with us. So, but yeah. Roger says, Jay, if that was the church at AME when they said 4 more years in South Carolina, Marcel Dixon said that those people were paid. He knows that church and those people are never there. Of course, that's probably true. You know, I believe it. He says, yes, Eric July, a Sawwell guy who started his own comic company. His show talks about comics. He stated capitalist, staunch, libertarian, good friends with Larry, but y'all do agree on guns, plus liberal Dems bet. Gotcha. Thank you very much for that, Roger. Appreciate it very, 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 very much. Okay. Let's go to the Chizat here. Thank you for the super chat. ARJ 1997 says, I appreciate your last 2 streams in critiquing the liberal world order from our corporate and independent liberal media and the liberals who protect and provide cover for the empire's imperialism. All of them are clowns. Thank you so very much for that. Absolutely. They need to be called out each and every time, but also on top of not just calling them out, but also trying to provide an alternative for our community. Because it's one thing to call them out. It's another thing to say, yes, they're horrible. Here's what we can do. Here's what you can do in order to facilitate true change for your community and help out your neighbors. See, the thing is that we're not just in the business of complaining. We're in the business of actually getting on the ground and actually trying to help steer our communities in the direction that helps our material conditions to be improved. Don't just complain, because we can complain all day and just leave it at that and it's whatever. What are you also helping people to do on the ground that is the most important thing? In the words of Rome, put up or shut up. Right? That's what we're here for. Let's get to the rest of the chat, because I know y'all got some things to say. Y'all are a wonderfully chatty bunch. That's why I like y'all so much. Lou says, is he even lucid enough to have a concept of truth? I don't even think he can pronounce lucid at this point in time. Oh my gosh. Wesley says he doesn't care about losing. He's taking care of business with BB. Boy, I'm telling you right now. I'm not going to say what I was going to say because this is a family show, but what he be doing with BB behind closed doors. Trust and believe. Mastermind Hour says 4 million billions. Oh gosh, yeah, that's true. Zombie in the Air says body snatchers vibes. Yeah, of course. Let me see what else. Hobbs says, imagine orange Beetlejuice instead of orange Beelzebub. Oh my goodness. I love you guys. You guys are awesome. Let me see. Y'all are having a whole other conversation in this chat that I had. How did you guys get there? No idea. Steve says free Palestine. Of course, from the river to the sea. Dana says Jaybe is a disabled, but he's still built mutual aid organization in Orlando. I helped to build a mutual aid organization. I'm just one piece of that. There are other members as well. Shout out to all the other members of the RBN Orlando chapter. You guys make it happen. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. You're very sweet, Dana. Free Palestine. Yes. Oh, DC, you saying some stuff. You saying some stuff. DC says the Irish empathize with Palestine as Isle of Ireland is still under occupation. The Welsh and Scots have been assimilated more heavily, so the resistance secessionist movements. Yes, I actually aren't as strong. Yeah. So I actually talked about this last week on my channel. If you guys would like to, I actually talked about it. In regards to Haiti, there was a recent article that was brought out, a really explosive article by the Gray Zone about how the CIA was instrumental in taking out one of Haiti's most popular presidents, President Aristide, and replacing Aristide with a puppet, a Western puppet, a U.S. puppet. And so I was talking about how countries like Palestine and countries like Ireland, how they identify with other countries that are going through imperialism as well. So yeah, thank you so much for that, DC. Violence Dash show idea how to build a mutual aid org from scratch, or how to start CBI in a state that doesn't have it yet. That's actually a great idea. I'm talking in the wings with in the background about that, and so we're going to try to get a show to do that, to help, so that we can influence more of you who are watching to be able to start mutual aid groups, or even I also encourage you to join existing mutual aid groups too. You guys don't have to necessarily start one. You can join one, right? And, you know, you can search those out in your respective cities so that you can also learn from them, because I'm still learning too. So, but yes. And in the CBI, talking to Roger Meadows about that. Got to get that done. I'll be doing that lesson on my channel. But yes, thank you so very much, Violin. Very important. Very important. Let me go. Let me see. John Doe says, how do you respond to the argument that socialist revolutions historically don't happen in rich first world countries? They only happen in poor third world countries. I go back to what Michael Parenti said, that there's no such thing as actually a poor country. They're just overly exploited. Do you think the Congo is a poor country with all of its cobalt, coltan, gold? It's not. What did they do to Patrice Lumumba? What did they do to Thomas Sankara in Burkina Faso? See, it's always the imperial core that tries to suppress it, especially in these poor countries, because these countries are actually rich, but they just don't want the people there to know it. And it can happen, and it will happen, because capitalism is literally on the decline. And it will happen. It's just a matter of time. And dare I say, China is now a first world country. So, yeah, that's what's happening. Also, a lot of socialist countries would be more first world countries if the United States didn't keep its grubby little hands away from them. If they didn't, if they wanted them to actually fail, then why not just let them fail on their own? Why do you have to sanction them? Why do you have to put blockades? See what I mean? And that's like me racing against you. And if I have to shoot and have to show how much of a better racer that I am, how much of a better runner than I am, then why is it that as I'm trying to race against you, I keep throwing barriers in front of you? I keep try to sabotage you. If I'm actually the better runner, then let my skills do the talking. Why do I have to sabotage you each and every single time? If I'm actually the better runner. If capitalism is actually the better system, let it run on its own. Let socialism and communism run on its own and fall on its own. So yeah, that's what I say, John. Mm-hmm. Rondo says, what did they do, Gaddafi? Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely. So I am over in my time, but this was a great conversation. So thank you so very much to everybody for tuning in. This was a wonderful stream. I have a lot more people than I typically ever would. I am not used to having this many people on my own, but I would just like to thank all of you for tuning in. Just to let you guys know, I will be going live a little bit later this evening on my stream. I will be doing a reading. Yes, a reading of another book on my stream. I'm reading 3 books right now, but the latest one that I will be doing is Of Water in the Spirit, Ritual, Magic, and Initiation in the Life of an African Shaman. I read books on my channel. And I read different books on theory. On my channel, I'm reading The Will to Change, Men, Masculinity, and Love by Bell Hooks. I read this on my channel as well. If you guys would like to, I also read Laziness Does Not Exist by Dr. Devon Price. I have read books from Michael Parenti, George Jackson, Asada Shakur. I read these books on my channel because it is good for us to educate ourselves so that we can grow, so that we can push forward for a better future by going to our revolutionaries of the past in order to know how we proceed forward. So I do that on my channel as well, if you guys would like to. My channel is linked in the description below if you guys would like to go to my channel. I also did a live reaction to the State of the Union address. I was frustrated. I was deeply, deeply frustrated. But anyways, so yeah, so you guys have that there as well. So thank you very much for that. Also, I will be live on my channel on Tuesday, and then look forward to me and Sabby being live this Thursday as well. I hope that she'll be able to come on this Thursday, but we never know, because sometimes she'll get a guest, and then next thing you know, it's like you got to make sure you accommodate that guest. And also for our comrade that is struggling right now with her water, if you guys would like to, then you guys can also get, slide her a piece, so to speak, so that she can get her water back on. So if you guys can, you guys can slide that to her. She's local here in Orlando. She is a comrade. She does some good work on the ground as well. And then also, if you guys would like to, you guys can donate to Orlando RBN. We're trying to raise some funds to be able to give out care packages. We're trying to raise $1,200. So we're trying to do that within the next couple weeks. So if you guys have anything to spare, then you guys can also do that as well. So thank you so very much. Millennial Falcon, aka Skip Up, says grassroots and community building. We are. Yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. It's easier said than done, but it can be done. And that's what we're trying to do. So thank you so very much for that. And so I just want to say thank you so much to everybody for tuning in, because ultimately it is about trying to not only grow ourselves, but help out, you know, people who are going through it in our community. I also want to leave with this. There was a it's a sad story, but there was a murder of a trans person recently. This person's name is Chevy Hill. The details about their murder aren't clear as of right now, but this says our beautiful Black trans brother, 35-year-old righteous Torrance Chevy Hill, was murdered in Atlanta, Georgia this weekend. He went by the nickname Chevy. He was originally from Macon, Georgia. He owned Evolution, which is a Black queer-owned LGBTQ plus salon in Atlanta that provided and dedicated full service to specializing in hair, nails, barbering, and makeup. Growing up as a young Black queer boys, kids, the barbershop experience can sometimes be a tricky space to occupy. This was something that Chevy understood and wanted to cultivate a space of safety where you can also get the affirming look and style you wanted, and he did exactly that. Chevy was a beloved son, brother, partner, and father. One of his last posts that had a photo of himself said, "If you truly know me, you know that I am a humble, modest, private man, and that I love my community. I have a love of God in me and will give the shirt off my back to any soul in need. I also never post pictures of myself. I never give myself credit. That stops today. I am my legacy." A close friend of Chevy asked if I could share more than one photo. Says Chevy, "Hey King, hey brother, hey Angel, thank you for everything. I love you. We love you. I am so sorry. There's a lot of photographers in heaven who will be able to photograph you as a glorious Black trans angel that you are." So unfortunately, this gentleman was killed, and this is something that happens among Black people constantly. So just wanted to give my condolences to Chevy's family. You know, especially, you know, we're workers. Those of us who are LGBTQ, we're workers too. So keep in mind, solidarity with us means solidarity with workers too. So yeah. So with that being said, I'm going to head on out. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Look, like I always say, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. And do not believe what these moderates and liberals are telling you. They are dangerous. They will lead you down a dark, dark path. Stick together with your community and build together for something better, no matter what they say. I love you for watching. And of course, mwah, forehead kisses to every single one of you. I will catch you guys in the next one because, well, that's how I do. All right. Oh, wait, before I go. Thank you for the super chat. Chima says, how do you respond to those that say socialism has failed, capitalism is the way, and dismiss all the CIA sabotage and proxy wars as mere excuses? If socialism has failed, then how is it still surviving despite what capitalism is doing to it? And if you're going to dismiss all the CIA sabotage and proxy wars, I don't think they actually really wanted to listen, because it's true. The sabotage and the proxy wars constantly happen. Socialism has actually succeeded. And it's not because it fell upon itself. It's because of the sanctions. It's because of the constant barrage of infiltration from the West, from capitalist countries. Let me ask you this. How often has socialist countries tried to infiltrate and sabotage capitalist countries? Doesn't happen. So, with that being said, just like I said, they try to run that race. They try to sabotage them every single time. If you're actually good at what you do, why you gotta dim somebody else's light to make your light shine brighter? Capitalism is just a hater. Anywho, I'm gonna head out, guys. Have a good one. Mwah. Oh, by the way, congratulations to Nico House on your new baby. Congratulations. Yes, Nico had a baby. Nico had a baby. Congratulations to him. Happy birthday to Sabby Sabs. Love you, sis. Hope you had a great time in your holiday vacation. And yeah, love you all. Bye-bye.